Hello students. Today we are just going to discuss a very important topic called as IDs and classes. So students, you're going to use this a lot when you're writing HTML and CSS code because they make the process of writing CSS very easy. But before we get into that, how to use them for writing CSS, we'll first understand what are IDs. So students, ID property of the element interface represents the element's identifier. If the ID value is not an empty string, it must be unique in a document. And what are classes? The class attribute is a space-separated list of the classes of the element. It is typically used to group a set of elements and provide them common design using CSS or manipulate them using JavaScript. Now student, before I get into the real explanation of both these topics, let me first give you an example. I hope you remember your college days if you have passed out of college, and I'm sure you remember them if you are still in college. So in college, every student generally has a unique ID, which is known as the registration number or any other name that you might have in your college. That number is unique for every student. So basically, that acts as a unique identifier for that student in the college. Now, in your college, you can have different sections. And in a section, you can have 40 or 50 students. Apart from sections, you can also have different clubs in your college. Let's say a guitar club, or entrepreneurship club, and so on and so forth. Now, being a student, the unique identifier, the registration number that you have, that becomes the ID in case of an HTML element. So imagine HTML elements to be students in a college. And every HTML element has a unique ID, as every student has a unique identifier, which is their registration number in the college. But every HTML element can also be a part of certain classes. And multiple HTML element can be a part of the same class. And a same element can have multiple classes. Like let's say you as a student can be a part of both guitar club, entrepreneurship club, and at the same time you will also be there in one of the sections in the class. Similarly, your friend can also be together with you in section A, but not with you in guitar club, so on and so forth. I hope you get the example. So if you want, you can just play back this example in your mind, and actually IDs are very similar to that unique registration number of the student in the college, and classes are just like those clubs or sections. So how do we write them in a HTML document? To write the ID, and students, these attributes are not mandatory. So basically they are also going to be attribute of an element, and it's not mandatory. You define them only if you want to. But if you define an ID in a HTML web page, our ID should be completely unique. They cannot be repeated. So let's say I give the ID of this heading web dev. So this becomes the ID of this page. And if I want to define the, let's say, class also of this, so class can be heading, and you can write multiple classes for the same element. Like if you remember from my example, you can be a part of different clubs. You can be a part of guitar club, and you can be a part of entrepreneurship club at the same time. So similarly, an element can be a part of multiple classes, heading. And let's say I have one more class which is called bold item. So I'll add one more class to it. So when you add multiple classes, they should have at least a single space between them. Okay. Now I'll go ahead and add one more class to this list element. I'll add it to this IDs and classes. Class equal to ID classes. Okay. So you can use basically the classes shouldn't have any space in between them. If you want to have any kind of separator, you can use underscore or dash. So students, I hope you understand how to write ID and class attribute of an element and what they basically mean. We'll use them in the further sections to understand how they can be used to write CSS properties of an element more effectively. See you in next class.